I wanted to say farewell to Doug Nelson tonight. This is his last night of being our video specialist, and he's been here for 35 or 40 years, something like that. Doug, can you hear us?
They'll flicker the screen.
Thank you for, can you hear me? Thank you for all of your good work, and congratulations. Okay, could I get a call to order, please? And my roll call?
Commissioner Light,
Present.
Commissioner Boswell, Commissioner Craig,
Here.
Commissioner Gaddis,
Here.
Commissioner Conroy,
Here.
Commissioner Lamb,
Present.
Chairperson Hazeltine.
I'm here, and it's April 18th, 2024. Okay, a salute to the flag, please. Okay, and start. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so we are going to change the order of the agenda, if that's all right with everybody. If I could have a motion to move L1 before J1,
Motion to move L1 before J1.
and a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
And that's unanimous, okay. So we did have a blue folder item tonight, so I'd like a motion to receive and file the blue
Motion to
folder
receive
item.
and file.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and that's unanimous. Okay, so our consent calendar. This is business items, except those formally noticed for public hearing or those pulled for discussion are assigned to the council calendar. The commission members may request that any council calendar item be removed, discussed, or acted upon separately. Items removed from the consent calendar will be taken up under the excluded consent calendar section below. Those items remaining in the consent calendar will be approved in one motion. The chair will call upon anyone wishing to address the commission on any consent calendar items on the agenda, which has not been pulled by the commission for discussion. Each speaker will be permitted to speak only once, and comments will be limited to a total of 3 minutes. Anybody would like to speak on the consent calendar items? No? Okay. And then do we have anybody online?
We have no e-comments and
Okay. Then can I get a motion to approve the consent calendar?
Motion to approve the consent calendar.
And a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So we are in the next part of the meeting, which is public participation on non-agenda items. This section is intended to provide members of the public with the opportunity to comment on any subject that does not appear on the agenda for action. This section is limited to 30 minutes, and each speaker will be afforded 3 minutes to address the commission. Each speaker will be permitted to speak only once. Written requests, if any, will be considered first under this section. Is there anybody wishing to speak on non-agenda items? Okay, is there anybody online or Zoom, the phone?
we have no e-comments and no e-attendees.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so let's go ahead and we're going to move on first to L1, and that will be our city manager addressing us tonight, Mike Wazinski. Hi, Mike.
Nice to see you all.
Good to see you.
Appreciate all your volunteerism and all that you do. I'm on my April annual listening tour as we begin budget preparations. So I don't really have a formal presentation for you tonight. It's really just to solicit input from you all, feedback on your thoughts on the budget, answer any questions you might have, and try to provide some context if there are things that you're curious about. We deliver the budget each year, middle of May, to the City Council. They will receive and file the budget and hear a presentation from me on its introduction at the May 21st City Council meeting. We should have it out to them that on the 16th, 17th, the week before. That's when it will become publicly available. So right now, we're kind of mashing the numbers, looking at different issues, trying to address potentially critical needs in the city and identifying ultimately what we want to incorporate in the proposed document. So it's a great time to, hello there, sir. Great time to hear from all of the commissions. This is, I think, my 5th meeting with commissions this month, and I've got a few more to go. It's not something we did historically, but in the last year, we started this process, and I know it was pretty well received. So rather than listen to all you after we've delivered the budget, we thought it was a good idea to have you provide that initial input while we're creating the document. So with that, I'll stop talking and
Okay.
turn it over to you and answer any questions that you might
Who would
have.
like to start? Anybody?
If I may, everybody, and Mike, I just want to interject. So the blue folder item tonight was a little bit on the subject line. It's your referral list that we
Right.
worked on from September through December. So, that could translate in something that relates to, budget-related matters. So I just wanted to make sure you
Okay.
guys are aware of
And
it.
it's
This
worth,
blue folder item is a subject of this discussion.
Well, no, it's not.
Oh.
But it's.
But things that we have on there, if we want, bring them up to Mike.
Correct.
Okay.
That
And
might
just-
be related to budget.
and
Okay.
just so you know, this isn't your last opportunity to, after the budget is delivered, if you see something in the document that troubles you or that you'd like to see enhanced, you have the opportunity to provide additional input at that point, not to me, but to the council. And we
Right.
we add that as an annual budget response report.
You don't want us calling you up?
You can do that too. I'm always happy to have a conversation.
Okay, who's starting? So basically, Mike wants to know if we have any ideas.
Yep.
Go ahead, Sheila. Commissioner Lamb.
So I have 9 questions.
Okay. Let me take some notes.
Ready? So why don't I do 2 and then pass it on to someone else?
Okay.
Okay, I don't want to take up the whole time. Okay, so the CIP. Okay, how do you prioritize CIP projects?
Sheila, can you say what the CIP is?
Oh, I'm sorry, that's the capital improvement programs?
Okay.
Thank you. The process is clearly stated, I looked at the 23-24 budget. So it's clearly stated in the document. And the process is that it's ranked by funding priorities. Okay, so there's the process, right? And there's like 5 to 6 criteria,
We call it our evaluation criteria.
evaluation criteria. Then it's ranked by funding priorities, imperative, essential, important, desired, I think
Yeah.
is, right?
Yeah, generally. And I think what I would caveat that with is that's the sort of criterion we use to determine what we would recommend the council appropriate funding for. So when we talk about funding, the availability of funding is critical, right? We may have incredible need at the police station or fire stations, but not have general discretionary funds available for us to execute that project. We might have money in a dedicated transportation restricted funding source that's allowing us to move forward with the project that is of far less need, but we're going to recommend it because there's money there. So that's the criterion that we look at to determine whether or not we put it into the proposed budget.
So let me see if I have this right. So you've got the list of CIP projects, and there's,
Which is 120 and plus.
right. So you've got the list, they're prioritized, you initially prioritize it by those initial criteria, then it's broken down again by imperative essential. But I think what I'm hearing you say is that that it's really, the basic criteria is funding. If you have funds and in the budget, there's different funding streams,
Correct.
correct?
Correct.
So for example, let me give you an example. Last year you were here and one of my top priorities was next door, right? The garden,
Right, at the library, yes.
and the city, and the, right?
Right out here.
Right here, right? I understand that that's been on the list for 5 years. And, hold
version
on,
of that.
hold on,
Yeah.
let me finish.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm not exactly correct. But I think what I'm hearing you say tonight is that the reason, even though that may have been on the list for a period of time and others they got on the list later, got prioritized basically because of the funding.
In large part, yes. That's generally, the timeliness of our funding sources is a big driver for us in executing the project. The other thing that we've introduced to prioritization, so there's kind of two versions of prioritization. There's us internally prioritizing which projects we're going to recommend to council for funding. And then after that, there's what becomes the sort of city's prioritization and execution. And we've recently introduced council input on that process as well. So
Right.
council priorities now, we're giving them an opportunity to weigh in on each of their specific priorities. And then we overlay that with things that might be time sensitive, might have liability associated with them, might have state or federal mandates, building code requirements that we have to then address. And those may, in a sense, you've got 120 projects on a list. Sometimes there's a bit of a laddering effect that occurs each year due to those circumstances. So the project you're referring to, we've at least got one of them started, I know that. But the library grass kind of turf replacement project has taken on sort of two different forms the last few years. It was originally a project that we seeded funding with, and then we were able to obtain a grant to help actually complete the effort. So we're in the process of designing that now, but we had to design it in a way that was compliant with the new grant requirements. So it can change the pace of delivery depending
on where the money is.
Yes, and
If a
securing funding. So as an example, if we go out and obtain a grant and then we have to secure it through a funding agreement, sometimes that takes 6 months to a year to obtain from the county or the state or the feds. We can't start any of our project work until we have that money secured by agreement, or we won't be eligible for reimbursement. So it's kind of a blessing and a curse at times. If we had infinite discretionary resources, we could go at our own pace at any time. We could start, we could pause, we could reinitiate. But when there's a grant source, you've got to allow that contract to be secured so we don't run afoul of the requirements.
So it's a complex process.
It's a complex process that continues to evolve in a myriad of ways.
In a myriad of ways. Okay. Thank you very much. That was very helpful to give myself and hopefully, residents and everybody else an understanding of how this all works and why some sit on the list for a period of time.
The reality is it's a 5-year capital plan for a reason, because there's really an expectation that many of these projects will take that long to construct. To put it into some perspective, we had 126 capital projects approved on the list for fiscal year 23-24. We, in 2023, the calendar year, constructed the most projects in our city's history. We completed 29 projects and designed an additional 11, spending a total of $29 million. We'd never done anything close to that in our history's past. That still just puts a dent into that list of 126 projects. That's just us keeping pace on a 5-year plan.
Right.
So it's difficult. A project added in a single fiscal year, unless it's really just hits all the green lights: funding, council need, community need, liability concerns. It's rare that a project that's funded in a particular fiscal year that's new to the plan is constructed in that particular fiscal year.
I see.
Usually takes several years to get through.
And is there a list of the projects that have been completed? You have a list on the website, but it's just like a budget. It's in the budget, right? It's a budgetary list. Is there a list on the website that shows which ones are?
Yeah, it's a good point. We've got that new capital project portal that engineering manages. It's got a little bit of GIS data, it points to where the project area is. It gives construction notes and kind of where we're at from a schedule perspective. But I'm not sure we're keeping kind of a running tabulation of projects that have been completed. We might be, but I'm not sure it's outward facing. So I'll talk to the engineering team and see if we can get that as kind of a running
Yeah.
document, just so everybody can see that. Because there's a lot of really great work that happens, but it happens in areas of the community that people don't always visit and they may not know about. And they think, wow, I only wanted one thing, and why hasn't it happened? It's like, well, that one thing was compared against all the other 125 things, and that's the challenge.
And I think your explanation is really a good one. Hopefully, it's recorded and can be played back on the, right? Can be played back on the new website.
There you go. That's something we could do too. I'm not a big fan of videos, but yeah.
So let me stop, let somebody else go
I do
forward.
want to just say one little quick thing on that. So what happens when, so let's take the landscaping out front.
Yeah.
And when it was first proposed, let's say, oh, we could do that for $200,000. In 5 years, it sits there, and now it's $1 million, I'm throwing these crazy numbers out.
Yeah.
But so how does that even mesh with the process? Because there's no way it does.
No, it doesn't. No, inflation bites us all the time.
Yeah.
We just had this conversation Tuesday night with the council in our pavement management program. And what happens with the inflationary construction market versus what's available in the budget, right? We've been really good about building roads in our community, better than we ever have before, but our scope of work has been diminished by the cost of construction and materials. And that's frustrating, and so we're getting less for our money. And to your point, if money sits and we design it slowly, we get less each fiscal year. And that is a challenge, and it is a frustration. And what it has often required us to do when we actually get to the construction phase is supplement the budget with additional appropriation to cover the gap. So it's very common for us.
I know this is like a crazy bureaucracy problem, but there's no way to get something done before 5 years.
Well, there is. And I'll tell you, one of the things that happened here in the last year with the charter changes is we're creating more maintenance flexibility into our charter. So prior to this year, the charter was very rigid on what capital projects we had to formally bid, which means we've got to do
that's
public
right.
noticing, invite licensed contractors, you've got to put it out there for 45 days. You got to give them a chance to ask questions. They submit under sealed bid. We then look at the bids. Oh, this person can't complete the project. They have the wrong license. We strike them. We award contract. There's process for that. Then there's execution of the contract. So you have all these sort of bureaucratic requirements that were set by an amount of investment, $50,000, which was in the charter. We've
Right.
since adjusted that now to 200 and created an inflationary index that will allow us to keep pace. And we've also expanded our definition of maintenance by actually allowing us to create one through our Muni code. So what we can do is if we define something as a maintenance effort, right, replacing a roof or painting a building,
Right.
and that's going to cost more than $200,000, if it falls into the category of maintenance, we can bypass some of the more bureaucratic process. So we are just now realizing the benefits of those changes. It takes a while, like
Okay.
everything around here, it takes a while to kind of implement and modernize, but that will bear really good fruit down the road.
Okay, anybody want to jump in? Yeah, go ahead. Commissioner
Mike,
Craig.
I had a question, I guess, after my comment I made at the council meeting the other night. My phone's been blowing up, asking me questions about it, and had to do with our fire stations.
Yeah.
And if we were even able to even get a bond measure through, what really would be the construction time that you foresee it as a city? Is it a 5-year window, or how quickly could those actually be built?
Yeah, no, great question. And love the thought, sentiment that you had the other night. It's one of those things behind the scenes we've always marinated on, would love to see a bond, but it's really got to be a community-led effort,
Right.
Because it's ultimately taxpayer money, right, that would have to be assessed if we issue a general obligation bond. You'd all have to vote for it, right? I believe there's very significant need that would warrant such a general obligation bond. So we're gonna start to provide the information needed for you all to make an informed decision on that at some point, I hope, starting with the council first and then potentially the voters if the council decides it makes sense to do that. But when you bring on significant resources, right, not hundreds of thousands of dollars, but tens of millions of dollars, or you can then really build out a delivery team that is focused exclusively on those efforts. We have to use existing staff. We have to assign them a little bit to this project and a little bit to that project. And we've got a lot of money invested in a lot of different buckets in very small ways. And that creates inefficiency. If we have big money in just a couple of project budget buckets, we can get those through. Because we really can design and build 15 to 30 projects a year. The challenge is when you're designing and building a $200,000 project, it takes just about as much time in some instances as the $10 million project. So you got a lot of lost time there and inefficiency. So yeah, I think certainly inside of 5 years, I would think in some areas, potentially even 3. It would depend on what we're doing. If we're renovating stations or reconstructing, two different schedules.
Yeah, 'cause one of the thoughts I had were, it's like fire station's a fire station. So maybe there might be some off-the-shelf plans that would
Yeah.
expedite your process on that.
Yeah, yeah.
Assuming they don't violate code and a lot of other things.
Yeah, and conform to
but, yeah.
property sizes. Like, absolutely no. There's even structures out there that are kind of tilt-up buildings. Now, you're also seeing, ironically, the cost of tilt-up buildings is getting to be just about as expensive as new construction with everything that's happened in the market. But no, those, I look forward to those challenges.
Okay, good, thank you.
Yeah, that would be fantastic. Yeah.
Excellent, thanks.
Okay, anybody else? Ideas for the budget? No? Yes? Yes, Sheila? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 7 more.
Commissioner Lamb?
7 more.
Is there a plan to conduct an online survey regarding the residents' budget priorities?
We did that 2 years ago, and we didn't get a super great response, so we didn't do it last year. We can give that another whirl if you think there's value in it, yeah.
I think the question, maybe a better question is what are some of the strategies that your team would look at to re-engage the community on the issue of budgets?
Yeah.
And I would say, they're both Luke and Elizabeth, I think, have a good sense of how the community is thinking or moving forward, what they respond to.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, no,
I guess that would be the question. I think if right now surveys are not working, the broader question is how do you want to engage?
Maybe we reboot them a little bit. We didn't, last year was a pretty hurried input gathering process. I did all the commission meetings, but, we had a new finance director coming online, so our schedule
Right.
was largely compressed. We might have a little more bandwidth for it this year. I'll talk to staff. It's a good thought. Rebooting the surveys. We might could learn, there's probably a few lessons to be learned from the initial survey process and how folks responded, but I'll talk to Luke and Elizabeth about it, see if there's maybe a way to engage.
That does sort of lead into my next question or comment, and that is, in other cities where community engagement is more robust, I think they do have a communications director, right? That's an ongoing, right? That there's an ongoing, there's an ongoing presence.
Almost probably a periodic check-in that is, is filtering or soliciting that input throughout the course of the year.
Right, and maybe advertisements in the local newspaper about engaging, that kind of thing. So maybe it's about a more robust engagement process over time, not maybe it's that these individual,
It's just too compressed. It could be. Yeah, maybe it's more of a feedback throughout the calendar year.
Right. I don't know, you've got 2 great people on your team, so, but it's just a thought, again,
appreciate it.
that engagement with the community is really important. I know everybody here feels the same. Okay, expenditures. Police, this is last year, 44 million, fire, 18 million, 62% of the total
Are you looking at
general fund
actuals or budget?
budget. That was budget. That was the 23-24 budget.
Yeah, I think fire's 23 million in that.
And, right,
Yeah.
that was what was brought up
Yeah.
on Tuesday. Right, was 23.
Yeah,
right?
23 is the adopted budget number, I believe.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I pulled these right off.
Yeah, no,
the-
it's okay. No,
Yeah.
but yes, very large percentage of our general fund budget.
But then it's over 62%.
Yeah, that's very typical.
Of the general plan budget.
General fund budget, yeah.
Okay. Is this sustainable over the next 10 or 20 years?
I'll tell you, for better or worse, if you look at our peer group across the South Bay and the state, most full-service cities that have both police and fire services, their public safety budgets are somewhere between 65 and 75% of their total general fund cost.
Okay.
The fact that we're at 62% and we do full cost allocation, meaning everything, the fire budget and the police budget have a percentage of my time, a percentage of the finance director's time. It's fully loaded, right? Equipment, IT, everything. There's no overhead that's just off to the side being
Right.
also supporting that function.
Comprehensive.
So for us to have a fully loaded budget that's reflecting, under 2/3 of the total general fund cost, we're actually doing pretty well. The sustainability question for me has been, and for a while I thought was largely resolved, but we're back at it again, is going to be dependent on pension costs. And if pension costs stay reasonable, we did a wonderful thing, as you all heard me say last year, in refinancing our pension debt through the lease revenue bonds that we issued and taking the 6.75%, discount rate with
Yeah.
PERS down to 2.7%, saving the city about 100+ million. Commissioner Conroy knows about this, over $100 million over 20, 25, 28 years. Fabulous thing, right? But that supplemental unfunded accrued liability that PERS issued us years ago that we just paid off and are now paying debt for, we've been hit with another small supplemental UAL because of their underperformance 2 fiscal years ago. So as long as PERS does well, and as long as the state adheres to the PEPRA kind of pension reform that's been implemented, because all of our new police and firefighters, our new police officers and firefighters are much less expensive to the city than our classic members. That's because of pension costs. As long as we adhere to that reform and don't grow it down the road, because I'm wondering about retention in the public sector with PEPRA in place. Not so much at the police and fire level, but at the administrative level, it changes people's willingness, I think, to be 40-year public servants, right? I see maybe my successors down the road looking at public agency service as maybe a 20-year prospect as opposed to a career prospect, a full career prospect. So that I still wonder about. That's a little more esoteric and theoretical, but as long as the police and fire side of the equation, we hold the line on PEPRA reform, I think it will be sustainable.
Keeping it at that 62%.
Yeah, it'll be in that range. It'll be somewhere
60 to
around 2/3, 60% to 2/3 of our total general fund cost.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Well, thank you for that.
But if it gets much more than that, it's a problem for the rest of the operating departments, I can tell you that.
Right. So a few weeks ago, a council member commented that revenues for Redondo Beach, I know you know this, you know what I'm going to say, right? The revenues for Redondo Beach were not comparable to the other cities. So our revenue, property tax is 43%, sales tax 15%, utility 11%, TOT is 9%, and then there's another tax that's 11%. I think it's a
Utility user tax?
no. That's
They have general taxes, which is fees, service charges, and other things
That's
that
what
are
it was.
collected. Yeah, it's a combination of things.
so in and she mentioned this with a sense of concern. And I know revenue generation is always on everybody's mind, right? Does the city have a revenue optimization strategy?
In my head, yes. Is it laid out on a plan? No. You know, I think about revenue optimization every budget cycle all the time, right? And we could spend a lot of time talking about why we're deficient from a revenue generation standpoint. And I will caveat that with, we actually do our property tax growth has been quite good. It's actually been sensational the last 10 years. I mean,
Yeah.
really, really incredible. And in that regard, we actually do pretty well vis-a-vis our peers. And I think this was where the council members' concerns were arising, where we are on a comparative basis from a sales tax perspective is not good. We are on a per capita basis, one of the lower South Bay communities on a sales tax generation formula. And the reason that's disconcerting is because a lot of cities now, one of their biggest sources of sales tax revenue is the amount of money that's distributed from the LA County online sales tax pool. And we get a pro rata share of that pool, not based on how many of you buy from your computer here in Redondo Beach, but how our brick and mortar sales compare to the rest of the county. So when our brick and mortar sales continue to decline like they have since really the erosion of the South Bay Galleria, our pro rata share of that expanding sales tax pool, right?
Right.
is a double whammy for us. It's dropping at a
Precipitous.
expedited rate.
Right.
That's why we don't compare well to our neighbors. Right. And so it's an odd thing. You know, you think to yourself, well, why isn't the formula? Well, you know, let's point of sale, right? If it's our residents buying the thing, shouldn't we be capturing that sales tax? They're not. That formula has been in place for a long time. I'm not hearing a lot of legislation to change it because there's winners and losers in that. And they've stuck with this kind of brick and mortar equation. And it used to benefit us. When we had Nordstrom's and the Galleria was humming along, it benefited us. When that property performs at about 40%, maybe even 30% of its peak now, might even be less than that. It's really harmed us on that basis.
Is there a algorithm around percentages for revenue from revenue sources? So
Yeah, by type.
by type, right?
Yeah.
Right.
There are HDL, our sales tax consultant, could give you some kind of holistic metrics. I don't have that particular math in my head, but I could give you I could tell you what the sort of high generating on a per square foot base businesses are. We don't have any of them. But that's part of the concern, right?
Right. So is there any discussion, right, that's a direction that you think, or you and your team think the city should be thinking about in the next 5 or 10 years?
Absolutely. The challenge is our geography is, as you know, this commission knows it better than anybody. We're extremely built out, extremely dense. We don't have the properties that would have the potential largely, some of them maybe, that could be recycled to attract those higher sales tax generating uses. And in some instances, I'm not sure we want them either, right? It's not, there's impact with some of those. The things that generate big bucks for a city on a sales tax basis are your Costco's, your big, your Lowe's, your Home Depot's. Those are the things that generate the kind of the big dollars, your auto sales when they're performing at a high level. On a more micro basis, the highest generator of sales tax for a community on a per square foot basis is an Apple store or other, and then to a lesser degree, other electronic stores, high-end electronic stores.
We don't have
For us, we don't have them. Yeah, unfortunately. Now, if the South Bay Social District was successful in its renovation, it might be able to attract some higher per capita, per square foot generators. Absolutely. But we need to see them get over the finish line for that to happen. So that, to me, if you're asking me what's our biggest potential sales tax improver on the horizon, it's the execution of the Galleria, now South Bay Social District renovation.
Right. And that's still,
Also still a lot, got some headwinds.
yeah. Okay, I'm going to leave it at that, but thank you so much. Really great to be able to talk with you
Anytime.
and hear your take on taxes and where we are in the city, right?
Appreciate it.
Anybody else? Yes, Commissioner.
One quick one. I'm not sure I even want to bring it up, being as I benefited from it. I used to, I have business licenses. How much money that Redondo makes from that, I'm curious about, because I was in Manhattan Beach and I would pay a flat fee, which is actually higher than the fee I paid for the whole thing, and the percentage of our income. And when I came to Redondo, it was much lower, and it's not based on income. Is that, I don't know which is the more common model there. Is if it's such a small piece of the pie, maybe it's because it tracks businesses to have cheap business licenses, but it is kind of a loss of a revenue.
Actually, it's a good question. It is a smaller slice of the pie, so it's not one of those things that we sort of aggravate over constantly. But to provide some perspective, our business license code actually enshrines our fees, and it calls it a tax. And there's some cities, laws as it pertains to how you adjust taxes and fees and charges for service have evolved, right? Prop 218, there's actually been some updates to that recently. So these days, it probably would require a vote to adjust anyway. Under virtually all versions of it. There was a time when cities would treat the business license as more of a fee than a tax. That I think was challenged and maybe pushed back, and there was some grandfathering in. But if you look at our code, it's enshrining very old fee structure that hasn't been adjusted in a long time. So we don't perform as well as our peers, again, in that respect. But we're talking probably a loss leader of hundreds of thousands of dollars of potential revenue as opposed to millions of dollars. So it would be good to update it, probably be good to, in fact, there's other reasons to update it. That's been kind of a part of council conversation here of late. Our structure is so rigid, it doesn't have the flexibility for certain fee types that you would like to see in a more modern code. Day rates or food trucks. I mean, there's references to like products sold from wagons.
Goodness gracious.
That's what's shocking to me.
Are you back out on the
I'm
prairie?
paying this a minuscule amount, and I'm doing okay.
Yeah.
But there's people doing a lot better than me. They're paying my same minuscule amount, which doesn't make sense.
Yeah, so it's something we ought to revisit. It's something the council's just starting to kind of marinate on a little bit. We'll have an item on that for discussion here in the next probably couple of months. We had a kind of a waiver discussion a couple weeks ago to cover some things, but there's a lot to our code. Unfortunately, it's pretty
Rigid.
pretty rigid, a lot of minutia in there. It's like, it's overly descriptive in a way, and it sets these weird fees, $137 if you throw 2 baseballs and
That's pretty
sell a
funny.
hot dog. I'd say it's like weird, it's really,
Lemonade stand.
yeah, exactly, yeah.
So another topic. So last year, I brought up the green storm water infrastructure.
Yeah.
And of course, I'm going to bring it up again this year, especially because Manhattan Beach is putting theirs in, and it'll capture something like 40 or 60%. Where are we now?
We're doing great. So, I think I told you about the enhanced watershed management program we have with our watershed partners, which include Manhattan. And it's funny, when you see a project being executed in Manhattan, Hermosa, or Torrance, it is probably something that we're a part of, our watersheds are a part of. And we do this on a regional basis. So sometimes we'll do a hyper-localized effort, right? Like the Beryl Street Improvement Project, I think I mentioned that last year. We've got some temporary swales and things to capture runoff and to treat like that, the first flush, it's called. Our big projects right now are in 2 locations. We're designing a project at the Fulton Play Field that is going to be a significant water capture for our region. That was kind of the pivot, if you might recall, from the Hermosa Beach originally envisioned Greenbelt project. So
Yeah.
that kind
That
of,
got voted down,
that
right?
one wasn't going over too well.
Right.
So we've now picked it up, and we're now finding a place to put it down at Fulton. It's a good spot for us. We're also working on a project with the joint cities up at Anderson Park that we're looking to help capture and treat with minimal impact as well. So we've got 2 big ones in design. We're contributing towards one that's going to help the Dominguez channel that I think, it might be Manhattan that's leading that one, I'm not sure.
Okay, how about all of South Redondo, we're on a little bit of a hill there, you know, and it rains and whoosh, that's going right out to the ocean. So what do we do about that? I think that's kind of what Manhattan's doing. They're putting it down, right? If I'm not mistaken, it's a different, so they're capturing that part of the water.
You try, yeah. So we have that at Alta Vista Park, right? We have a capture system at Alta Vista Park. We
You
have
know, we're on the other side.
I know, we have a capture system at
I
Topaz.
just, is it even possible? Because it's so important, and I'm just gonna have to lecture again, you guys. We are in a really like special place. We're along the ocean. And when we don't capture water, fertilizer goes out into the ocean, dog poop goes out into the ocean.
All of those things.
All of that stuff goes straight out into the ocean. And so as, you know, having this special place, it is so important that we put that in the budget to figure out how we're going to capture water on, you know, there's a hill there. It is rushing down like a river.
Yeah, we're doing it through a very long-term strategic plan, right? Our enhanced watershed management program has a list of priority projects that, as important as the area you're describing is, we've studied that and we've determined there's probably ways, but they're expensive and they're difficult to implement. Over here, you know, we might capture maybe 300 acre watershed in the area you're describing. But over here at Fulton, we can capture 1,500 acres of water, treat it before it goes out to the ocean. Or up at Anderson Park, we can capture, you know, 2,000 acres of water before it goes into the Dominguez Channel. So we have studied this in a way that maximizes value and impact.
Yeah.
But it doesn't dismiss any future project. It recognizes that there are a lot of areas where we can make improvements, but we have to do it in a strategic way, because candidly, these are not cheap projects. I mean, they are millions and millions of dollars. So we have to fund them over multiple years, plan them, and then execute. Fund them, plan them, execute.
Yeah, and I was talking, the Galleria, when I went to talk with them a few months back, and I said, well, you guys are going to come in front of us, and what I want to see is I want all that water captured. Sure enough, it's in the plan now.
Yeah.
And that's a huge area. So it's little things like that. If every one of, you know, and they're going to use the water to water their planters there, which are all California natives. So
that's a new thing. So we have a local impact development lid ordinance. We have stormwater capture ordinances now. So what I was going to tell you is that I think the best way for us to eventually kind of work through that issue isn't going to be large regional projects in some of those areas. It's going to be small micro projects all adding up to making a big difference. And it's going to start with everybody's property. I mean,
it's parkways. It's so
it's
simple.
Parkways. It's what you do with your landscape or hardscape in front of your home. Are you managing your own water runoff on your property, or are you just shooting it down your driveway and getting it out into the street? All of those things are a factor. So new development requires that on-site capture, at least for first flush. Older development didn't, and it usually pipes it into the storm drain. So eventually that'll work its way through. But, you know, the odds of us probably being able to fund a large regional project in the area you're describing, it's probably a decade away.
Right. So how do we expedite the capturing on people's properties? How do we do that? That's not a budget issue?
It's through ordinance. I mean, our ordinance is there. If you do significant reconstruction now, you're going to have to do that.
Well, we get it on every, you know, someone comes in front of us and wants a conditional use permit, we can usually get it. But
TI's, he's getting it at the planning counter. I mean, with residential improvements.
you.
Yeah. One 3,000 square foot lot at a time. So,
Absolutely, that's correct.
Right. Okay. Anybody else?
I'm going to tag in on that.
Yes. Commissioner Lamb.
Ted Lieu has $1 million grant fund for compelling municipal-wide interventions. Watershed management, I believe, is part of that. I just wonder, just a thought, that what you talked about a couple of minutes ago was how about a citywide intervention, right, or a citywide plan? You've got it covered with the new build, right? But it's the old build that needs to be addressed. As you know, Wiley Sump is going to be part of that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yay, Sheila. Yay.
Wiley Sump's one of our few natural capture areas that we have.
Right. and I don't think Lou's grant is going to, it comes back every year. And watershed management is a hot topic right now. So I just want to put the challenge to you that perhaps Redondo Beach could be a model for bringing localized watershed management through bioswales, et cetera, to address the old build issues. So just a challenge.
Yeah, it would be great. It's always a challenge to compel, there's private property ownership and what we can do to compel somebody who's living on a property that isn't doing anything with it is somewhat limited. You know this from the planning commission standpoint. So we have to incentivize that, right? That has to be incentivized through, grants or projects or programs that would provide resources to help people along with those efforts.
Well, I was thinking more like, I think, Gail, you had mentioned curb cuts.
Right.
Curb cuts for bioswales on a street, right? I think it's very difficult to motivate a homeowner to do. I don't think that's a realistic.
Yeah, it really isn't, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the reality, unfortunately. We can do it in the right of way to the extent that we're in there and engaging in construction efforts. And we do have a Living Streets program and a Green Streets policy.
Oh, you do?
Yeah,
Yes, that's
I mean,
right,
Manhattan
right.
Beach Boulevard has, in parts, permeable paving to capture water runoff. The Manhattan Beach Boulevard renovation project that we're just starting will navigate much of that water at points where possible to temporary hold. So, if you look at North Branch Library, your parking lot, you got a little art project in there, but that's actually a purposeful swale to capture water runoff.
Yes.
Sometimes it's kind of hiding in plain sight, these treatments, and you don't always see them, but they're there, and they're part of our vernacular, very much so. The MS4 permit was adopted by the Regional Water Quality Control Board, gosh, I want to say now maybe 15 years ago, and it's forced us to do all of this planning, right? And that's Enhanced Watershed Management Program is no joke for us. It's a real thing. There are obligations to it. We have commitments, requirements. We have to invest in it. It takes a lot of time and resource. That's where, when we're trying to build little things out here, it's oftentimes those compliance programs and projects that are occupying our time.
Right. That gets them up to the front of the list.
Yes.
Right.
So then, last year I also mentioned kind of like a resident education program. You'd be surprised, people don't know any of this stuff. And it's not their fault, when they pave something over or something they just don't know the importance of it. So it was simply send out a postcard to people, or now that we have a new website, right? Put on a green tag, go here. This is what we want you to start thinking about. Plant trees, plant natives. And the reason why, it's important. It's very, very important because, as we know, our Earth is very unhappy with us. The Earth will survive. The humans will not. Okay. Anybody else?
Another question.
Yeah.
You mentioned, actually, I think you beat me to it in your comment about permeable pavement. Where I live, I guess it was a pilot program on South Broadway in the alleyway there.
Yeah.
And when it first was put in, I called Nils, my council member, and said, hey, this stuff's coming up off the ground.
Hey, what's happening here?
And it works real well. I mean, when we have those big deluge and stuff,
Right.
It'll be this high for about 10 minutes and it's gone.
Takes the edge off for sure.
It's really good. Now, is there any plans other than, you mentioned Manhattan Beach Boulevard. Most of my neighbors, there's a bunch of houses over there. They love it because we used to have a big problem with water just pooling in some of these large areas and it clears up pretty fast. That's something like, I don't know, on the avenues, there's a lot of alleyways. I don't know if that would work.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. It does. We've tried a lot of new things. You might notice if you think about Vista Del Mar and kind of Catalina and the kind of blocks to, east and west there. If you'll notice in the swale, in the cross gutter, you'll see a cut in the middle of it, like a trench down the middle of it. It's like that much. You think, oh, what's this? This is that's actually to help permeate water. If you go to Gateway Parquet, if you look at the paver stones that are there, the interlocking paver stones, there's a gap there. Now, sometimes sand will fill it up, and you over time, it looks like it's meant to be that way, but that gap is to allow water to permeate into the water table and the surface. So we do a lot of these things.
Yeah.
We just aren't out there ringing the bell on them. We're just sort of building, they're now kind
Yeah.
of just part of our project design.
I mean, Esplanade is such an obvious place, and they don't have curb cuts. It really does. The water flows down on Esplanade on the west side. You've got all these little island of planters that aren't planted. But how hard would it be to put a curb cut so that now they're filling with water? It would be really
I'm
simple.
not sure that there wasn't a time when there actually was one.
Well, there's not anymore.
I know, and there were some problems, and you know, and
They're not there
Yeah.
anymore. Okay, Commissioner Boswell, you wanted something to say.
So I'm wondering, after projects are brought to fruition, they're in place, they're running, what kind of policies and procedures and so forth are in place that then look back at that over a period of time and assess whether it met the goals that were originally anticipated? Maybe keep a knowledge base of wrong terms and mistakes. Is there something like this in place where we evaluate the effectiveness of a project after the fact and learn from it?
yeah, no, great question. Wish we had more of it. I think the answer is not, I would say not enough currently. There are occasions where we are truly trying something new. An example was the Alta Vista Park infiltration project. We actually had a component of that was meant to capture water and then put it into our irrigation system. Well, what we started to realize is we couldn't keep up on the chlorination required to actually bring that water quality up to a standard that would make it eligible for public distribution. So our requirements, as a resident, you can repurpose water any way you really see fit. As a municipality, if we repurpose water and then discharge it into the community sphere, it has to meet certain standards. That's why reclaimed water, right? There's identification for it. You're not supposed to drink it, et cetera. So sometimes we've learned the hard way. The monitoring is usually for projects that aren't necessarily as successful as we hope, but we don't always stop and reflect on, hey, was that permeable surface better or worse than the one we used in another part of town? So the program does now call for some kind of retrospective look, the Enhanced Watershed Management Program, and I forget what it is, every 5 years, I think we have to update that document. So there is kind of a look back in that. But, oftentimes I say it, we get something done, we cut the ribbon and off we go to the next one, because we got 126 of them left.
Do you have any process in place that at least looks at the major projects and says these we will definitely evaluate at various intervals after completion?
Yeah, I think the projects that we're planning now, the big capture projects that we're planning at Fulton and Anderson will definitely have that metric. The Manhattan Beach Boulevard project has enough Green Street technology in it that I think we will be watching that. We did at one point actually install a particular type of permeable surface that created delamination problems. So we actually went away from that product. So we did sort of retrospectively analyze that. But it's a good thought and certainly something I can talk to our CIP team about and maybe try to implement more systematically.
I think it's important to make sure, I mean, in a city like almost every other city where there's a lack of funds to do everything we need to do, much less what we want to do, making sure that we only waste money once in a particular area is vital.
Yep.
So I'm encouraged to see that there's an effort. I'm discouraged that perhaps there isn't the staff or the time, but there's the will.
Yeah, no, there's the will. Yeah, I'll tell you, our engineering team, they're an analytical group. They love kicking this stuff around. Sometimes it's like, okay, enough kicking it around. Let's go. We tend to sort of stall due to kind of paralysis through overanalysis more often than the opposite. So, which is probably a good thing, but at times it can delay things.
One other thing, just a little off to the side, actually referencing something that came up earlier, the survey to the residents.
Yeah.
I'm a little disheartened to hear that it was done the one time, or perhaps prior years also, and then it didn't seem to get much response, so it was dropped. Seems to me the people who live here are the most important segment that you need to be surveying, even if most of them don't respond. I mean, we still have elections, even though most people don't even vote.
That's true.
So I think surveys should be locked in to be a certain interval. You should never give up on them. And if people aren't responding, you need to say, why is that? What can we do to improve that?
Yeah.
We need more outreach. We need people to see the connection between their input and actual results. And feedback is an important thing to get that across. With the lack of the local beachy newspapers being thrown up on our driveways, that used to always happen. It may be hard to do that, but you guys are smart. You have an analytical type group. You can figure out a way to do this, I'm sure. But please, never stop asking the residents for input and opinions.
Yeah, no, it's a good thought. And I should probably further qualify that. We didn't do a budget survey last year. We did dozens of surveys across the year in different capacities: website redesign, logo refresh, questions and answers about, what types of information you'd like to see. We have a very robust communications team that's constantly trying to engage the community. But I will say, for whatever reason, there has been some feeling that our survey tends to get the same respondents over and over again. And I do know the initial budget survey was a little disappointing in terms of response. I think we launched it not once, not twice, but 3 times in slightly different formats. And, there's an engaged community like yourselves. And then there's a lot of folks that we found that just were either indifferent or didn't have the bandwidth to pay attention.
How are these surveys delivered?
They're placed online. We'll do a push through our social media channels. We'll do direct communication to people who are enrolled in our email subscription service. We try to hit everything we can. We'll make announcements at council meetings. We've put things in the paper to try to make people aware of it. But it's interesting. There's a percentage of the community that's engaged in feedback and input, and then there's a group that just has their life going and
You're busy.
trusts things to be working well.
It's a busy 24 hours for most people, especially since we've cannibalized most of our commercial property into residential, and so now everybody has to fight traffic in and out of the city in the morning and the afternoon. They get home, have dinner.
Yeah, tired.
Get the kids entertained a little bit, and then go to bed, get up next morning, do it again. There's just no time. It's why it's one reason why people aren't voting, because they don't know who to vote for. They don't have the time to
They have
investigate.
time to research it.
But if somebody has an issue with something and they get that survey or they get that notification about the survey, perhaps the survey should also have a way for people who have filled it out to then forward it to other residents that they know. There's other ways than just putting up a sign that says, maybe the banner across Inglewood, just south of Artesia.
Oh, what a great idea.
Participate in our survey, please. Otherwise, stop bitching at us.
Commissioner Lamb, go ahead.
But
Commissioner Lamb?
people want to tell you what they want,
Okay.
but they don't know when to do it, or they don't see the opportunity to do it.
No, it's a fair point, and I think it's something we'll take to heart. I'll talk to our staff about it.
Okay.
Commissioner Light,
Thank
did you have something? No,
No.
Commissioner Lamb.
So on the point of the surveys, I filled out a survey recently, as a year or so ago, but the content of the survey was very difficult to
To
answer.
digest, yeah.
Right? It wasn't actually getting right to some of the issues that it was trying to get towards. And I think it was written by the department. So my suggestion would be, is in your evaluation of survey and community feedback, would be to look at who's writing the survey. Is it a professionally written? Have you gone out to some of these agencies that actually
Can
write?
kind of help. Yeah, no, that's a good point. It might take a little bit of professional support to create templates that are more effective.
Right.
We had that same thought. We were using a fairly inexpensive resource and survey, I think, platform before, a software platform, as a means to try to solicit input. And I think that created, maybe some barrier to success. So we might have to spend a little bit of money potentially
Right.
to solicit more accurate feedback.
I do know that the council members, some, maybe not all, do periodic
They do.
surveys as
Yeah,
well.
they'll
And
do
I
it.
think they get good feedback. I mean, numbers wise.
Yeah, they'll get, depending on the issue, they'll get 40 responses, 100, 120, 150. It's, pretty good number on a
Good
by
number.
district basis, yeah.
Right.
And that's another group we'll use. We'll create a survey, we'll launch it out through the districts and they'll get feedback, they'll send it to us, so.
Right, and then you can collate
Yeah.
the outcome.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, Commissioner Gray.
I can say the way probably to increase your response is to put pickleball on top.
2 rackets collide, yeah.
This is what we want to talk about.
But actually, just to piggyback off of that, I know that while your things coming from the city sometimes don't get a lot of people's attention, I know you are using some social media. I remember when the harbor amenities plan was coming out, I know a certain group about the waterfront was
great.
pushing it out there, and I know you got increased response because of that. Have you thought about, approaching some other groups in the city to help you with those kind of responses?
In certain instances, we have.
Yeah.
Yeah, it depends on the issue. If a group's willing to raise their hand and it seems appropriate from a synergy standpoint, we'll do it. I will say, one of the things that I'm proud of in the last year for us is we did implement an interdepartment communications team that really tries to bring everybody together, tries to think about these things proactively, and tries to create ways to engage the community. We didn't have that. Even 2 years ago, 3 years ago, there was no effort to do that. Heck, we didn't even have social media accounts 18 months ago, 2 years ago. So we're a little bit, we're still a little bit young in this field. I'll accept that, but we got work to do. But we've come a long way in at least in a fairly short amount of time. But this is good feedback. If that's still of value, we can maybe try to find a way to kick the tires on a little differently.
Okay, so should we let our city manager go, or do we
I
have
have
more?
one more.
Okay, we'll
And
end
that
with
is-
One more.
We'll end with
One
Commissioner
Number 9
Lamb.
of 9.
He wants to go home.
I should go back and get the agenda done.
Actually, I wanted to respond to something you said a few minutes ago, and that was, we don't often ring our own bell, right? Right? And so many good things I heard tonight that I didn't know. And so I would just want to encourage you to start ringing that bell.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really important. So many things that the city is doing on behalf of the residents and for the climate. I would never have known had not we all been asking these questions tonight.
Well, and it is, and it's always a good reminder that, we don't, and I say this to our staff a lot, we need to celebrate our successes.
Yeah.
And, maybe hey, fist bump, good job. Okay, where's that project? I just got a call. So it is, we need to do it. We need to take more time to, talk about what we've
Public
completed.
celebrations.
Yes.
We need public celebrations.
They need to be
Yes.
external, not internal.
Well, in a way, that's kind of going back to education. We need to know what the heck's happening
Yeah.
because, we're moving forward on all of these green ideas, as people know about it. Other cities are doing it. You see signs, the most trees,
Yeah.
capital of the world,
That's true. There are a lot of our peers, they're pretty good at
Okay.
tooting their
I think
horns.
the council members at their
Captured
district meetings, they
stormwater in
generally
America.
lead off the district meetings with, okay, here are all the great things going on. We redid these streets, we put this in, and stuff like that. So I think there's a little bit of information conveyance that occurs in those district meetings. Now, they could be a lot better attended than they are right now. But in general, I know for Nils and Todd,
Yeah.
they just lead off with, okay, this project's done, that project's done, this next one's gonna be done next week. And the first 40 minutes of the district meeting
Oh, that's good.
is really that stuff
It's a
that they're
lot.
talking about.
It's a lot of good things. And I'll tell you, I did a kind of a roadshow for just about all of the district meetings in early January and February. And some of you saw it where, kind of did a year in review. And it was amazing how, got a lot of comments afterwards. I had no idea. And it's like, and this is the group that's engaged in going to these meetings,
Yeah,
to
yeah,
your
yeah.
point.
Yeah, right.
Wow, okay, well, maybe we do have to do a little more bragging around here. I don't know.
Blow your own
I think a
horn.
video of you telling the story is a great one.
Star is born.
Put it on mine there,
Just
too.
right.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you so much.
Well, thank you all. Really appreciate the feedback, and we'll see what we can do with it. And see y'all
Okay,
again soon, I'm
thank you.
sure.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, so let's move forward. We have ex parte communication, and this is the section is intended to allow all officials the opportunity to reveal any disclosure or ex parte communication about the following public hearing, and that would be the J1 public hearing. Sheila, can we start with you? I mean, Commissioner Lamb?
Commissioner Sheila.
Yes, Chair Hazeltine.
Did you speak to anybody about this?
I did, as a matter of fact. I spoke with Chair Hazeltine.
Okay. Commissioner Conroy?
I spoke with members of the community.
Okay. Commissioner Gaddis?
I spoke with members of the community.
Okay. Commissioner Craig?
Like many, the members of the community.
Commissioner Boswell?
Absolutely no members of the community would talk to me.
I'll just say nothing to disclose. They would probably talk to me, but.
Okay. So I spoke with city planning department and city officials and Commissioner Lamb. Okay, so J1, this is our public hearing. I'd like a motion to open
Motion to open the public hearing for
and
J1.
a second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That would be everyone. Okay. J1 is a public hearing for consideration of an exemption declaration and conditional use permit to allow the operation of a personal improvements service in an approximately 3,111 square feet tenant space within an existing multi-tenant commercial building on property located at 234 South Pacific Coast Highway, Suite 104 through 106 in a mixed-use MU3 zone. Okay, so is anybody going to be speaking on this tonight? You probably are. Can you stand up?
Any speakers? Yeah, thank you.
And take an oath, please, if you're going to speak in front of the planning commission. Okay, great. And you promise to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Okay, great. You can be seated. Okay,
Stay off and down.
do we have testimony?
We do, Chair, members of the Planning Commission. Our Associate Planner, Victoria Banfield, is going to present the item for you tonight. We also have the applicant here as well. And is there somebody on Zoom?
Yes, we have an applicant in person and also one on Zoom.
Okay, great.
Thank you,
Okay.
Victoria.
Ms. Banfield.
All right, I'll begin the staff report. Tonight's item is consideration of an exemption declaration and conditional use permit for a fitness studio located at 234 South Pacific Coast Highway. The project site is located on the east side of South PCH, just north of Torrance Boulevard. The site is zoned mixed use MU3. The properties to the north, south, and west are also zoned MU3 and are developed with a mix of commercial buildings as well as some multifamily residential across the street on the west side of PCH. The properties to the east are zoned R3 and are developed with multi-story, multifamily residential. The subject site is approximately 30,000 square feet and is developed with a 22,450 square foot, two-story multi-tenant commercial building, which was built in 1989. It's currently undergoing facade upgrades, which were approved administratively last year in 2023. The site is accessed by a two-way driveway on South PCH. And the proposed project would combine three existing tenant spaces, suites 104, 105, and 106, which are located on the first floor and highlighted here on the screen. The combined area would be 3,111 square feet. You can also see by this aerial photo that the site has parking on the surface. There's 26 surface parking spaces. And there are also 62 parking spaces in the underground parking garage. The 3 suites, 104, 105, and 106, were previously occupied by a retail store, massage business, and tutoring business. The interior tenant improvements propose to combine all 3 suites into one large suite. The fitness studio has proposed business hours of 5 a.m. to 11 a.m. and 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 11 a.m. Saturdays, and 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. on Sundays. The business model consists of 50-minute classes with a variety of workouts, including cardio, strength training, core stability. There's a maximum of 3 coaches and 28 clients at any given time. And the proposed interior remodel would divide the space into 2 main areas: a front reception area with incidental retail and a locker area. And the main room would be an open workout floor with about 9 different workout stations, about 3 clients per station, the restrooms, and a storage room. No changes are proposed to the exterior of the building, except for the closure of an entrance door that provided access to Suite 105. One of the potential issues that comes up with fitness studios is parking. So we created this data table of all the existing tenants, their land uses, square footages, and the parking ratio required by our zoning code, and found that the entire shopping center requires a minimum of 83 parking spaces. The site currently provides 88, so there is a surplus of 5 spaces. The fitness studio is categorized as a personal improvement service, which requires 1 space, parking space per employee, plus 1 parking space for every 2 students. So with this proposed tenant, they would need 3 parking spaces for the 3 employees, plus 14 spaces for the 28 clients, which is a total of 17. The 3 existing tenant spaces combined are allocated a total of 12 spaces at the standard parking ratio for retail, which is 1 space per 250. So with that combined 12 parking spaces that the 3 tenant spaces are allotted, and the 5 surplus, that gives us a total of 17 spaces that this tenant could use. I would also like to note that there are an additional 16 tandem spaces in the underground parking lot, which we do not count towards the total parking. So those 16 are not included in the 83 that are existing. You can see them on the floor plan. They're at the bottom of the screen.
Pardon me, they're not even counted as a single space?
No, they're counted as a single.
Okay.
Yeah, just 1 row is counted.
Got it.
So the proposed business hours would have very limited overlap with the existing on-site uses. For example, the morning hours, 5 a.m. to 11 a.m., the restaurants on site would not be open until 11 a.m. And then the proposed evening hours, there's only a 1-hour window from 4 to 5 where all of the uses at the center could potentially be open. 4 to 5 is typically off-peak for restaurants, and most offices are nearing closing. But given that the site complies with our parking standards, parking is not an anticipated issue. I would also like to note that there are currently 3 spaces, or 6 if you count the tandem, in the underground garage that are being used for storage for construction materials while the shopping center undergoes the facade upgrade. So due to the need for these 3 spaces to be available for the proposed business, a condition of approval has been included in the resolution, which requires the storage materials must be removed prior to issuance of the certificate of occupancy for the tenant. Another potential impact for a fitness studio would be noise. The applicant has provided a noise study, and that is included in the staff report. The acoustical design review report prescribes that the sound control designs within the interior walls prevent noise impacts on the abutting tenant spaces. It also recommends additional sound attenuation required in the ceiling to to prevent noise impacts to the tenant spaces above. All business activities will occur within the building with no outdoor activities, and entry doors must remain closed at all times. There is also a limit on the amplified sound within the tenant space. Also, due to the fact that the fitness studio is oriented towards PCH with no doors or windows that face the east side, it's not anticipated that there will be any noise impacts to the residential uses to the east behind the shopping center. And based on the report and the requirement that the project incorporate all the recommendations, it is anticipated that any potential noise impacts will be mitigated to less than significant. So staff was able to make all of the required findings for the conditional use permit. The property is adequate in size and shape. Their existing access driveway on South PCH is compliant with our access standards, driveway width. There is adequate parking on site. And based on the noise impact study, the impact will be below the allowable levels as conditioned. Staff is also including additional conditions in the resolution. For example, maximum number of employees and clients. Class registration must be done online and shall limit the number of students, so there will be no walk-ins. Classes will be staggered a minimum of 10 minutes to allow students to leave and arrive without much overlap. Use will occur exclusively within the interior of the tenant space. Entry doors will remain closed, soundproofing is required, and that construction materials in the parking garage must be removed prior to certificate of occupancy. So staff recommends that the Planning Commission open the public hearing, take testimony, close the public hearing, and make a determination regarding the exemption declaration and conditional use permit for the fitness studio. That concludes the staff report, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Planner Bansfield. That was really a good report. Any questions for staff?
Yeah, I have one on
Commissioner Lai.
the sound, at 95 to 100. 100, 15 minutes of can cause hearing damage. That seems awful high. I know I'm a member of a gym and I walk by it and it's loud working out there, but you're at a gym, so you're okay with that. I'm just looking at some of those businesses. There's this dental office, there's physical therapy that are there. The restaurants are noisy places, and I don't think there's mitigation, and sound isn't going to travel too far there. My concern would be, though, how disruptive would that sound be to those businesses that do rely on quiet that are in that same place? I know I read the sound study and I saw how they did that, and they had recommendations. The speakers should not be connected directly to the walls. They're soundproof, et cetera. That all makes sense. But is there some equivalent of these places being in this kind of setting with neighbors and checking that sound, how it works out? Because you're probably not going to know that till after the fact. And the goal seems to be to mitigate complaints about sound, and that's in the reports there. But that's something that it would be helpful, I think, to have any comparables, if there are, of other kinds of studios like that. Does anyone have looked into that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is a use that's fairly common, and parking and noise, those are always the two issues. So we've gotten pretty good at drilling down into those issues, and after the fact, we're the first ones that are going to hear if the mitigation that we've prescribed in that project is working or not. The tenants are not shy in adjacent tenant spaces of calling the manager, who calls us, or they call us directly. And what's come up more often than the noise has been, the number of individuals that show up sometimes. Sometimes if it's a real popular brand or something, it'll go through a period where there's more activities going on there, more students, and then we'll get some, some complaints about that. And then we'll respond and send a notice and deal with it. But the noise mitigation we prescribed via the, acoustical analysis that we've done has adequately addressed noise to date.
Thank you.
Commissioner Boswell.
So on the topic of noise, I was kind of surprised to see the 100 decibel limit as well, because that is very loud. How do I even tell this without it being a long story? So I was in a bar that I've been to for years, and there's a band, and due to complaints from the neighbors about the noise, they installed a decibel meter over the bar, significantly far from where the band played, but facing the band, so they could see exactly how loud they were playing. And they were told, you cannot go over 100 decibels. Well, I don't think they ever came anywhere near 100 decibels, and it was loud. I don't think this inhibited them at all. So I'm wondering if, it's a fitness studio. You're not going to have a band in there. You're going to have recorded music that you turn up to a certain volume. You see what the decimal reader says, and you adjust it accordingly to what the decimal reader says and the complaints of your own clients.
Sure.
So noise should certainly be something that is easy to mitigate if you just put a decimal reader in there.
Yeah, and as I understand it, I went through the report myself as well, and that 95 to 100 decibels is not necessarily what they're going to use on a regular basis, because that is so extremely loud, but that's what the mitigation was prescribed to deal with. So it's a very conservative amount of noise, or greater amount of noise. So we would make sure we could overcompensate a little bit on that.
I think once they get going on this, they're going to realize that, 80 decibels in an enclosed, fairly small enclosed space like this is probably louder than what most people in the room want. So if you just know what your decimal reading is, you can adjust your volume on recorded music or streamed music, however you're going to do it.
Yeah, agreed.
But I've seen some of these spin classes where it is very loud, but again, they're in small rooms. I don't know that it's 100 decibels. I would be surprised if it was that loud, or even 80.
Well, decibels are inversely proportional to the distance. So I'm assuming that 100 is like right at the amplified speaker. It's not at the back of the room, because that would be dangerous.
Yeah, that's typical that the acoustical engineer that designs the studies is.
That's how they base it.
They take it right off.
Okay,
That makes
Right
sense.
adjacent to.
Commissioner Gaddis.
Okay, thank you, Chair Hazeltine. So did I read correctly in here, and I didn't mark it in my document, that there's a 20-foot setback from this club to the rear property line?
Yes, that's the existing setback of the building.
Okay.
It's 20 feet to the rear.
And I'm not an expert at the building, of course, because I've never really, other than looking at it through Google Earth, looked at the structure of the building. But this is on the first floor, and the first floor and the second floor have a different footprint of the interior, correct?
Yeah, I believe all the tenant spaces are a little bit different.
Because there's an outdoor deck, and I think it's even marked as an outdoor deck on one of the drawings. But that outdoor deck only extends over the first floor, which is where this gym is, right? And the terratai where I eat frequently, which is next door there. But there's an outdoor deck. Is there any way we could pull it up just so I can show you what I'm talking about?
It looks like it's filled with equipment.
It's an outdoor deck, so I imagine those are umbrellas and tables. Yeah, it's labeled here as an outdoor deck. The outdoor deck, yeah, it is labeled as an outdoor deck back there,
Are
right?
you looking right here?
No, I'm looking at this and that.
Oh, that
where
clears
it's
it up.
labeled outdoor
Yeah, I
deck.
don't see this as
I
that.
see.
So this is an outdoor deck here, right?
Okay, gotcha.
So,
Isn't
let
that a
me,
park, isn't that a road?
no, that's actually a deck. And it
Oh,
sits above it sits, this outdoor deck actually sits above this gym.
gotcha.
This is like second story.
So the second story has a setback. Now, are you telling me that this outdoor deck, which sits above the gym, has a 20-foot setback from the rear property line?
Way more, actually.
Yeah, because the,
Yeah, because I'm looking, can you pull
no,
up a
this is the back
Google
of the
Earth of this on your screen? I'm just trying to make sure what I'm seeing is
So is that
the
road then?
true statement here.
At the alley kind of thing, or a park?
Yeah, and
Drive.
just pop in the address. Yeah, there we go.
And if you move back a little bit, you can see the profiles.
There's no way it's gonna be that long.
Okay, so you zoom in, see that thing, see where it looks like there are plants and outdoor tables and stuff? That's actually, I think that's the outdoor deck. And if you tilt it a little bit, you'll see what I'm talking about, that the second floor of the building has a significant setback from the rear property line.
Could that be? a
Do you know how to
shadow you're
tilt,
looking at, Rob?
how to tilt that?
I don't think our,
You hit the,
Shift.
yeah, hit the shift and,
And then move the cursor.
yeah, there you go. Yeah, if you hit the shift button and you hit the cursor, it'll tilt for
I
you.
don't think we have that upgrade.
Yeah, you should have it. Just,
It's a Google feature, I think.
It's like you're rolling the mouse wheel.
yeah,
That's how you're zooming in and out.
With shift.
Well, can you just point on that
Just hold down
picture there,
shift and then
Rob,
move
what
the
you're
mouse
talking
back.
about?
well, here's what I'm talking
Well,
about.
I can see.
This is a second floor, see,
That's
this
where
is
shift
the
out?
the
That's the
outdoor.
outdoor.
Try with
Oh, you're
control.
saying there is
Yeah,
no 20 feet.
There isn't any setback
Oh,
from the
it's
rear
on the
property
property
line.
line.
Property line.
That's
It's
not,
on the property line.
Do you know how to do it on it? She's
so
using a
that's not
PC.
the
Do you know how to
deck,
tilt
the
it on a
grade
PC?
in that
Can
rear?
he come
You're
over
saying
and
that's a
tilt the thing a
No,
little bit?
you have to look, go show,
Yeah, okay.
I'm gonna unplug.
Yeah.
Got a
Jamal,
Mac, maybe
I
that's.
think you can activate their screen to go on the,
Oh, can we do that?
Yeah, you
I'll
have
show
to
you
plug
what
in
I'm
here and
talking
hit
about.
your number.
So
Maybe
the actual deck
there's
sits
a way to
up
do that.
above the studio. The studio
it's on the
extends back
property
all
line.
the
Look
way
at this.
here.
Yeah, totally
But
is.
part of it is covered by an outdoor deck, and then there's an upper floor
Almost at
which
80.
as a setback. Do you see what I'm saying?
I don't know, because see, look at this.
Or is that just
Don't
over
watch
the
me.
parking
Yeah,
garage?
is this air conditioning
That's the
here?
exact
and this-
building.
I would think so.
No, I
That's
know
the
it's a building,
roof.
but
It's a roof behind the roof.
So what's this?
Well, on top is a bunch of air conditioners on
Oh.
the roof.
Shadow,
And
it
then,
doesn't
but you
look
can
like a
see
deck.
here.
Oh,
that
maybe
the
it is
second
shadow.
floor is like this.
Yeah,
The
I don't
first
see a
floor
deck.
It's just shadow.
is
I see
covered
tables.
by this outdoor deck.
Where's the?
And then the question is,
It's supposed to be a 20-foot setback.
well, and I think there
here is
is.
where all the
from
roof
portion
with the
of
eight.
there.
Yeah. So the fence.
But, but if you tilt it back,
All the way to the
It is a
property
shadow,
line.
yeah.
see this wall here, it's not 20 feet from the houses.
No, that's your
You're such
PL.
a joker.
That's your PL.
So, and I don't know how to shift on a PC. Do you know how to do that? To
Yeah,
shift
I
the
mean, I'll-
picture?
I
So
can't
that
do it for you.
Let's all go over there. Let's all go.
Mm-hmm.
Let's have a field trip.
Mac versus
Let's
Windows.
see if we
Yeah,
can get
sorry.
it
Let's see here. So we should just be able to go.
Oh, here, this is the side.
Yeah, I see what you're
Yeah.
saying. We're not getting the
to.
same
We have
issue.
the upgrade.
Yeah, it's like a back wall.
Yeah, I was looking at that actually.
Okay.
You
I'm
try
not seeing a
something
tilt here.
Could that not be a
Who
10
who
foot?
here knows how to do it on a PC?
Kind of looks like it.
Got this.
Ah, there's tilting.
It's over here.
Yeah.
Well, that's the street
That's the
view. You're
street
not gonna
view.
Can you get
see
to the
it
other
across
side?
the-
You are a float of mine, baby?
Unless you went down to one of these.
Yeah. Browser is on.
Do-
Could be a browser issue too.
Do you, either of you know the answer to that? Is the back of the gym?
There we go.
Yeah, you can see this wall here.
Back there.
Is it up
where that
against the
outdoor deck
fence?
is, Right?
Yeah, so you can see how the first floor goes all the way to the property line.
Right.
Yeah, come on up.
Can we have them come up?
Yeah,
Sure.
come on up.
I was just saying we have a homesteader.
And could you just say your name and,
My
Thank
name's John Katnick. I'm the owner of the center.
Thank you.
Owner of the
Pacific Plaza.
building, okay,
234
yeah.
South PCH.
Oh, good.
So you're right, the ground floor goes down back to 3 feet from the PL. But the property line, but
People
the
listening, no
the
acronyms.
properties in back are raised, so we're retaining about 8 to 10 feet of dirt from the back, just like you can see the blue house, actually.
Yeah.
That would be in that picture.
Okay.
Our first floor pretty much goes up to that wall, of that blue house.
Okay.
So most of it's retaining of the ground floor.
Okay.
And then the second floor sits above that, where there's like a 20-foot deck.
Okay,
just
where
to-
did that 20-foot property setback come from?
Yeah, so, and that explains it. So it sounds like it's almost a subterranean condition. So there's a requirement for commercially zoned properties when they're developed adjacent to residential to have a 20-foot setback.
Okay.
So that's where, and then when we actually, we didn't realize in looking at the aerial view that was actually a deck space. So that 20 feet is the width of that deck. So the second story, the tenant space is 20 feet setback from that PL.
Okay.
Okay.
So would it be coming down off of this?
Well, I
when
mean,
you're
we're looking at it from this perspective. If you do an overhead perspective again, and again, I'm just trying to figure out where, is the 20 feet, and I'm not saying this is a bad idea or anything like that, but I just wanted to be clear that, the houses like that brick roof one there and stuff, is that elevated 12 feet up, or I don't know, how many feet, 8 feet up?
I'm guessing it's between 8 and 10 feet up. Pretty much the whole basement, which is, we have underground parking.
Yeah.
And a portion of the ground floor where the main parking is on like where the Pita's is and the Thai restaurant. That's pretty much buried in dirt.
Okay.
It's not until you get up to the upper level is where you have the deck.
So that outdoor deck is at the level of the first story of the houses behind?
Very close.
Okay.
Very close.
So this gym park, the back wall, the east wall of the gym is how far from the neighbor in the back?
It's a masonry wall, and it's probably, I think it's about a 3-foot property line that runs in back of my property to the neighbor's property.
That's what it looks
And
like.
that's dirt?
That's dirt.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay,
it is.
okay, so I think we figured it out. Okay.
That measurement is 21.75 feet to the fence back there from the wall, it looks like, right?
Yeah.
I'm reading that right?
Yeah, that deck width.
That deck.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
So essentially,
Deck is further back than the first floor?
the
It's on
back
top
of the
of the
gym is
first floor.
subterranean,
What's
is
the
what you're saying.
3-foot setback?
Correct.
What is that?
Okay.
That's the first floor.
And the whole deck
Subterranean
is
first
very
floor.
well insulated
3
with
feet
R30
between the
insulation.
back of the first
Okay.
floor and the
Okay,
neighboring
thank you.
I
property.
totally read that.
3
too.
feet.
Okay,
Okay.
great, thank
Okay.
you.
But the
Any
second
other
floor is even further
question-
back.
Excuse me. Any other questions for the staff? Yes, Commissioner Conroy.
Yeah, a couple questions. First, so mentioned there could be up to 3 coaches there at one time, right? And each coach would have, was it 2 students? 3
No,
students?
so each workout station has three different bicycles, 3 different treadmills. So there'll be 3 students per station, but each coach is going to cover multiple stations.
Okay.
They'll probably have about, 7 to 9 students per coach
Sure.
at a couple of different stations.
7 to 9 per coach,
Right,
but 3 coaches.
right. Maximum 3 coaches.
So my question is there any other staff that would be there at the time, reception, administrative, any other maintenance, anything else?
No, and I did ask the question of the applicant. So any kind of maintenance or janitorial services will occur after close. And they don't have a reception staff. It's only the coaches.
So there shouldn't be any more than 3 employees at any given time.
Exactly.
Okay. And then my second question is related to good neighbor policy. Has there been any communication with the neighbors on the other side of the property line regarding plans or?
There was still staff.
Yeah, I'm not aware. The applicant may have reached out, but
Okay.
staff's not aware.
Thank you.
Anybody else, staff questions? Okay, so applicant, we have one online, I believe, and anybody, okay, come on forward, please.
Has she been sworn in?
You were sworn, okay, you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, any questions for the applicant? After all of that. Okay, so I have a question. So you want to be closed from 11 to 4, right? That's not a parking issue or anything like that. Okay, great. Anything else?
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead, Commissioner.
Is this, there's a style, I guess Orange Theory is one of the, places where they really crank up the music as part of the whole workout thing and stuff like that. Is that the approach that your gym?
So no, with the 3 coaches, the whole idea is that you're actually going through the various different stations, and that's why they see so many people. But the coaches are talking. There's no mics that they actually have. There's computers, that back wall that we're talking about. There's literally TVs that are showing and displaying the workouts. So what the coaches are doing, they're walking around, not just cheering, which is a lot different than Orange Theory because there's just one coach. With the 3 coaches, they're literally walking through each of the various different stations, making sure that the participants are actually doing the workouts correctly and making sure that they're doing it to the level that meets their individual goals. So the music is just really background. It won't be cranking up and they won't be yelling because it's not necessarily to just be rah-rah. It's more so, this is actually, we combine group fitness with personal training, and you need to have that ability to actually talk to the students as they're rotating through the various stations.
Okay. And did the applicant online that's on Zoom want to say anything?
Yes, hi, thank you very much for accommodating me. I do want to address the acoustical issue as well. So we didn't ask for the 100 decibel. It just came out of that acoustical report because that's what they were testing for. And so we have done many different fitness uses, including the Orange Theory Fitness down the street, where we have adjacent, sometimes it's even residential above. And we're both that architect and that Vanna Clausen, who did the acoustical report, they're used to designing these spaces to account for adjacencies, whether it be residential or commercial. And so, what Lakeisha said is really spot on. It can't be so loud that the students can't hear their coach, because otherwise you'll have injuries or, things will not, the training won't go smoothly. And the music is more just a background. And also on the staff piece, the way that the conditions are written, we have to lock the doors once the class starts so no one can come in. So the 3 coaches are responsible for checking in the students. Once the students are in and the classes start, the door is locked. So there's no need for a receptionist. It's all taken care of by the staff, the coaches who are there as part of that 3 staff person limit. And I think that was all I had for right now, unless you have any other questions.
I will also just add on the noise. From the reception and the front door, there's also actually a soundproof glass door. So when the classes start, those doors close. And even if someone was to walk by the front, what you're hearing is behind glass doors that are actually soundproof, just to keep everything contained there and to be respectful in a sense of the neighbors and those that may just be walking up through the plaza.
Okay, thank you. So any questions?
I have another
Commissioner.
question. Yeah.
Yes.
Do those have a common wall with the Terra Thai
Yep.
restaurant? And is there, I don't know, any additional acoustical treatment between those businesses? Or is it just naturally not going to be?
No, there'll be significant baffling and additional sound attenuation in those walls.
Okay.
And it's in the plans and will be required to be in the building
Okay.
set.
Yeah, that Clausen gives very strict details, and it's basically building a sound box within the studio so that it mitigates both up and to the side.
No.
Okay. Anybody else? Questions? Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, so let's deliberate this project. What do you think?
I think you have to close public
Oh,
hearing.
we have to close the
Oh,
public
public
hearing.
comments.
Oh,
Any other?
are there any public comments? Anybody online or?
We have no e-comments at this time.
Okay, and no written comments on this? Okay, thank you. Okay, motion to close the public hearing,
I'll second it.
and all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so, okay, what do you guys think?
I have a comment.
Yes, Commissioner Lamb.
I wanted to commend Associate Planner Victoria Banfield. This is really thorough analysis. I appreciated the depth and the detail. So you answered every question I had. And so I really appreciate that. And so I want to commend you for the thoroughness in which you conducted the analysis.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody want to say anything about this new business?
Always like to see new business.
Well, I'll say
And
something.
you know
It
what? A
sounds,
healthy business, a health-oriented, fitness-oriented business
yeah.
should probably get that tie space as well.
Oh.
No, I love that place.
I'm sorry. Get a membership. I'm just kidding, of course, but yeah, it's always good to see people starting businesses in Redondo Beach, and Redondo Beach is a very healthy, conscious community. I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, it's a great location.
So, obviously parking isn't an issue. Noise isn't an issue, especially since it's not going to be your typical blasting music, spin class type of environment. It's just background music. I find it very difficult to come up with a reason to say no to this. Very difficult.
Yeah, my concern was the noise, that has been an issue with my practice, but this is an outdoor thing during COVID. And I had to do a lot of whining with it. So it was a little hypersensitive to see that 100 there. But you've alleviated all of my concerns, so I agree that there's no reason to dispute this.
Yeah, I think it sounds like a great project. Commissioner Conroy.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I'm very familiar with the property. As I mentioned, I've frequented different of the stores there, the Thai restaurant and others. And it's great to see. Sir, you mentioned you're the owner of the property. So I imagine you were the one behind the remodel, and that looks great as well. I think we all appreciate seeing people invest in, PCH corridor, the commercial corridor there. So we appreciate it. I think that I personally don't see a problem with this at all. I know that probably the first people you needed to win over was the neighbors in the building, and I'm sure you've done that. The property looks great, and I'm looking forward to it being filled up with great businesses that serve the community.
Anybody else? Yes?
I don't know,
Commissioner
can I
Boswell.
still ask them a question?
We can't, we closed the public hearing.
All right.
Okay, so do we have a motion to adopt the attached resolution by title only?
I'll make that motion.
And a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, all those opposed? Okay, so.
Congratulations.
Yeah, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Okay, congratulations. Okay, well, we have our mayor here and he probably wants to say something. No, you don't, you're just
Oh,
visiting.
come on. You don't want to talk to us? What do we
You can't get
say?
enough of this place.
He's not on the agenda.
Are you sure? Mayor Light? Okay. No, well, we could reopen the,
And actually, I want you to stick around for a second because we're going to talk about something that I want you to, I want your opinion on, okay?
I'd like to commend the property owner.
yes, do it.
I live in North Redondo, so I did go down to visit your business, I don't know, you call it a mini mall? Is that Pacific Plaza? That's right. I went to visit. We had approved the veterinary facility there. Looks great. And your improvements really shine. They really do shine.
Yeah,
So
nice
really,
looking.
thank you so much for your investment in the community. And I think you're also upgrading the service offerings. Is that correct? Absolutely. Yeah, really nice. Thank you.
Okay, do we have any items continued from previous agendas? We do not. Okay. Items from staff.
Well, I'm going to say what I've been saying the last couple of meetings. We're got that general plan update moving forward. We're really in the middle of the environmental impact report right now. Our next stop is another community meeting on the companion document, if you will, to the actual general plan elements that we're updating, which is all the zoning changes that need to occur to implement a lot of the housing programs, as well as the housing sites, as well as some of the other items in the general plan itself. The zoning ordinance and the general plan have to be consistent. So we're working on all those. That's what the focus of the community meeting will be when we have that. We're still trying to nail down a date, but in about a month or so, we'll be having that meeting. And then we'll release the environmental impact report to the public for review. And then as that review period ends and we get into responding to any comments, we'll be bringing the whole package to this body. So look for that. Everything's online related to the draft general plan document that a couple of our commissioners spent years working on, and our mayor.
And the mayor.
And we've received a lot of comments. We're packaging those and then we'll be putting those on the website as well. So if you can start to get familiar with that document, particularly the goals and policies for the revised elements, that's where your focus is really going to be. So I just want to keep making that announcement as we go forward. And that's really it. Oh, we also have a new community development director starting on Monday.
Really?
Yes. His name is Mark Weiner, and he has a lot of experience in coastal communities.
Carmel, right?
Carmel and Laguna Beach.
Laguna Beach, right?
Yeah, so we're excited. I need the help. So he's coming up starting on Monday. We'll see if I'll still be handling the planning commission or we'll be working together. We're still we're gonna map all that out when he lands. So
Thank you.
and that's it from staff.
I have a question.
Yes.
You mentioned that there were a lot of comments. I think it would be valuable to read those comments. Did you, just to confirm, you said we could see those comments online?
Yeah, we haven't posted them yet. We're still just going through them. We just closed the comment period. We had extended it to April 15th. So we're just going to do a read through and then we'll get those online. So everybody will have a chance to see those comments as well.
Yeah. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now we're on to commission items and referrals to staff. And
Yeah, I have some
Gaddis?
concerns about this. So I don't know is there any way this can be pulled up on the screen, this blue folder item, so that
I probably
mayor here
could.
can see
I'll
this?
switch stations. I
Okay.
don't think I can
Is that
control
possible?
everything from here.
These have obviously been floating around, some of them for a very, very long time. And, are of, in the grander scheme of things, perhaps lower priority than others. And others I feel kind of responsible for on here, and those are the ones that concern me. Let's see if we have our blue folder items. Yeah.
Can I include the blue folder though?
I don't know. This is the blue folder we got
I
at
couldn't
4:30
find them when
today.
I pulled it up this way. I don't know if they're in there.
Agenda packet.
I looked, I couldn't find them.
Yeah, where do we find our blue folder?
It should be,
Well, it should be.
public needs access to it.
Usually it's added, but it's kind of a loop.
No,
No, I couldn't find it when I was
I
looking.
tried doing the same thing.
I thought it was just me, though. I'm glad to see it's not.
You're in
Oh,
good
it's like-
company.
Okay,
Looks like it didn't get
That's a
posted.
referral
It
to
didn't
staff.
seem to
it
get
didn't get
posted.
posted, huh?
Access to blue folder items on to the
So there are a
public.
couple of items on here that I'm concerned about. One, it feels to me like some of the wording has been, so there's one that's worded on here, request presentation by city attorney on quasi judicial and ex parte requirements. And it says here, comments, the Redondo Beach Planning Commission discussed adding this item to the referral to CC for inclusion into the strategic plan, communication between a commissioner and an applicant outside of a public meeting, which I'm not sure that that's a sentence really, but there was a debate as to whether these items were relevant to the strategic plan. I don't recall that debate. The Planning Commission voted to include this item in referral to the CC for inclusion into the strategic plan. So what's my concern on this is that even things like the Redondo social district and stuff like that, there are a lot of sort of communications that are occurring outside of public hearings. And they're also, even more concerning are when, commissioners get a call from the applicant and the applicant's representatives and such to come meet with them, have lunch, talk about the project and stuff like that. And so things that are discussed in a non-public forum are invariably end up in the decision-making process. And I think that is, I think it's wrong, and it's probably in violation of the Brown Act too. But I wanted the city attorney who to come in and just sort of brief the planning commission on, what makes sense, what's proper, what's really a bad idea. In my opinion, and I believe it's shared, it's really a bad idea to meet with an applicant in a non-public forum and have an exchange of information with the applicant when all of that really should be done in a public forum so that the public has a chance to hear any information they want to convey.
So when I first became a commissioner, I read numerous guidebooks on the planning commission from different cities around California. And almost exclusively, they said, you should meet outside. You should meet with the applicant. That's good policy. Now, I don't actually care one way or the other, but I think we should be consistent. I think if our city attorney feels that it's not appropriate, then let's have a policy.
And all I was seeking here is that he come in for 10 minutes and say that. Either do it or don't do
Can I
it.
interrupt just one second?
So
If I remember correctly, the reason that it ended up worded like this is because we weren't getting any action. And I think it was recommended that we try to get the city council to encourage the city attorney to come. And that's why it ended up
Correct.
like that.
That's fine, but it still hasn't happened. And I
Okay, but
think
that is why it ended up worded like that,
Okay.
because we thought that it would be, maybe they'd come in if the city council brought it up.
Actually,
That's
we were
correct.
going to put it on, the procedure is that we put it on the strategic plan, correct?
We put it on a list that we present, the Community Development
Yes.
Department presents to the city council
To the, during this,
during the strategic planning
Correct.
meetings, hearings.
Right.
and that won't
Right,
happen
right.
until May.
Okay, so are you okay with that wording now, or you want
yeah,
it changed?
it's well, I think
We're
it's
trying to get the city council to help us out.
and that's fine. It just seems I don't know. It just seems the wording on it has changed to where it's yeah, it feels diluted, but and it feels like a much grander
I think he can change it.
ask.
How would you like
than it
it?
really is. I mean, I'd really like just some guidance, and that could be a half an hour discussion, right?
Yeah, well, to your point, Commissioner Gaddis, I can go back through these. This was a real rough first
Okay.
draft because I
Okay.
wanted to get it to you guys. I'm behind on minutes,
No, that's fine.
but I wanted to get to you before our city manager came up because there could be budget related elements here, I was thinking. You know, so
Yeah.
I'll go, we can go back, tighten it up. That's why I made a point of calling it a draft. And then you guys can, you can revisit it.
And we've, revisited it, discussed it way more than it would actually take for him to come in and say,
Right.
don't do it, or go ahead and do it. Now,
it's-
I have a sense of what he's gonna say, because Libby and I have discussed it. so,
We can,
yeah.
we want an audience with the city attorney to
Right.
cover this.
Right.
It seems like we've been asking for this.
And
for
and
over
it's
a
some-
year.
and it's something that, we get invitations, I get calls from applicants.
And hold when I started.
Yeah, no, that's, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Commissioner,
Can you step up to the microphone, please?
We might have Assistant City Attorney Cheryl Park on the line.
Okay.
Oh, there she is.
I do.
Oh, great.
I'm here. And I would be happy to provide the commission with a little primer on ex-party communications. We can put it on
the agenda.
the next agenda, which I believe is in May.
Great.
So,
Thank you.
if the commissioners
so
have
long?
specific
That
questions
easy?
that you would like me to address, you can just email those to me and that way I can address those specific questions. But if there are no specific questions, then I'll just give a general primer on ex parte communications regarding quasi judicial hearings before the commission.
Okay, and I mean, ex parte communications is one thing, talking with the general public about something, an agenda item. I'm really focusing in on the applicant.
Correct. So by ex parte communications, what I'm referring to is any communications you have with any party outside the hearing
Okay,
venue. So
Okay.
yes, it would be communications with the applicant. It would be communications with the public. It would be any communications that you have with staff, even. I think that the golden rule is that, just to give you a little glimpse, is that it does not, any conversations you have with anyone about a potential pending matter before the commission, not be something that would sway the decision maker one way or another. So it's typically a one-way kind of communication. So like when you're, and I don't want to get too far into this because it's
Okay.
not on the
yeah,
agenda.
it's a tough
So
litmus test.
Yeah.
All right,
yeah, I don't want to
Yeah.
violate the
Full
Brown
agenda.
Act here.
Right.
But yeah,
Okay,
so
great.
I would be happy to provide that for the
Thank you.
commission next
Thank
hearing.
you.
That would be
Can I
great.
actually ask something about that? Because,
Well, it's not really on the agenda, so we have to be kind of careful and not go
well,
to.
let me just tell you what I wanted to say and then you can
Okay.
decide. I actually got an email from a Jeff Mailman of
Yeah.
the Galleria
That's the
update,
Galleria, yeah.
and I didn't know what to do, so I've been
Correct.
putting them
That's
off.
what this is about.
That's exactly what it's about.
So I tentatively said a week from Friday. I put them off for 2 months. So the question is, should I put them off for one more 2-month week period until we hear and then put them off
That's a
completely?
question for you, Ms.
Well,
Park.
I think
Yeah,
people have been
I
meeting.
think,
The attorney.
God speaking, let's see.
Go ahead.
I apologize. I think it probably would be advisable for you to hold off on the meeting until I gave my presentation.
Okay.
Okay.
And then you could
Thank
make an
you.
informed decision as to whether you want to have a
Thank
meeting or
you,
not.
thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I have one more.
Not going to jail?
And that is, the second one I put forward was, we make a lot of decisions, not a lot, but we make enough decisions that are very important. And it's where we have not only our plan, the city plan, are we consistent with the general plan, et cetera, but also coastal act. Now, the general plan is one thing, coastal act is kind of another animal in and of itself. And it seems to me we would benefit by having a general discussion from someone who's very familiar with the Coastal Act. It could be our extremely knowledgeable mayor, who has written the only
Coastal program.
local coastal program change. It wasn't merely a change, though. It was an amendment, or was it? Anyway, that was not. That was approved by the Coastal Commission without any changes whatsoever, written by a resident. So that, it's never occurred before in history, and it occurred here. He's extremely knowledgeable. We also have other parties who are very knowledgeable in the Coastal Act, such, Frank Angel is extremely knowledgeable in that. And there are others that I don't even know of. Somehow this has been reworded now, request a presentation by Coastal Commission staff on the Coastal Act. Now, I don't have any objection to Coastal Commission staff if they're available and interested and willing. That would be great. They deal with it every day. They have a ton of expertise, but that isn't really specifically what I asked for. What I want is someone with that expertise. It could be Coastal Commission staff, but not limited to Coastal Commission staff. Because I don't know, they may be wholly prohibited from doing such a thing. I have no idea. But there are other experts out there. One is sitting here, our mayor. Another one is, somebody like Frank Angel or something. I'm sure there are others and stuff. So that narrowing, I would really prefer that not be there, because that wasn't the intent, if that's okay.
Yeah.
And then it's the wording option to have a presentation by Coastal Commission staff. Again, that wasn't what I intended. Presentation beneficial because the commission has dealt with projects that touch upon the Coastal Act, and they don't have enough background knowledge on what to look for. And that's really what I'm talking about, is what's the third rail that you're going to touch each time one of these projects came up. And I think it was really brought about by the recent Catalina project, kind of highlighted that. I always knew there was an issue there, but when Catalina project came up, all of a sudden, surprise, there are all sorts of things that could be in violation of the Coastal Act or not. And, is it up to us commissioners to suddenly educate ourselves in the Coastal Act and all of the litigation that's occurred and enforcement actions, et cetera, that might touch upon this particular project and stuff. And I don't expect to get all the answers in one discussion, but at least someone who says, when a project comes up, look for, that it decreases access to the coastline, or that it decreases availability to the public. You know what I mean? There's some high points, right?
Yeah.
So is that too much to ask for?
Commissioner Lamb.
Could you say that again?
So I would agree that there were a lot of legal issues that we as a commission had to and needed to understand, and many we did not. I also want to make a point to say we did not have the benefit of legal counsel. And as a result of I would say at the very least, some miscommunications, right? That triggered the fact that we now have representation at our meetings. And so I am relieved to some extent. I don't disagree with your position, but I am relieved in some respect that we now have counsel to guide us in ways that we did not have before. So I don't disagree with your interest. But it's a factor now that we will have representation. And that's going to make it easier for us. And hopefully there will be no more miscommunications.
Right. That's exactly what happened. A lot of treading water and nothing getting answered, and now we'll have.
Can this be arranged? Am I asking too much?
I'll give you guys a briefing.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
There we go. All right.
Agendize
One
that.
other question. This all came about because of the dilemma that staff had that the Planning Commission is required to be at the behest of the council, and that we could not, our role is not to direct staff to put an item on the agenda.
Right.
So.
That's correct.
Right? So it's wonderful that our mayor has volunteered, but how do we negotiate that issue, that it's not in our purview to request to have Mayor Light come to our meeting? How do we negotiate?
Well, this is unique because he is here and has agreed, but normally this is how we do it, through this list,
Right.
right?
Right.
So that this is a mechanism that won't set an expectation that staff can't come through on, because, I work for Mike.
Right.
And Mike works for the mayor and the city council, and they create our workload. This body's primary role and responsibility is to review projects that is under your, discretionary authority or purview. And certainly the relationship can be somewhat casual under some circumstances where there's a request and we can take care of that. There's, a level of what we can just turn around and add. But because of the resources and the lack thereof, we are, and so that's why these things, if you look at the top table, the dates on these items are, 2021. And it was like, we just could never get around to it because we had a list from the people we directly reported to that we could not, we couldn't keep up with that. So now I think, the process that we go through, it will get it to the city council if they concur. And some of these, are maybe not appropriate to go to strategic plan that we've identified, but if they are, they'll go to the city council. The city council will say, hey, the planning commission, will present that. The planning commission has these, they really think this is an important issue. If they concur, then it gets on our list.
So is the procedure at this point is that since the mayor has already agreed to come forward, does the council still need to direct you to put it on the agenda?
No.
Okay.
And then also we have this city attorney assistant or
Assistant.
Right.
assistant.
Right.
Deputy city
Deputy,
attorney, I
yes,
believe.
deputy.
to assist
That would
us.
be critical.
Also saying she would do, so those two things are going to get covered. Okay.
Those things will be agendized,
So they'll
right?
be agendized.
Yes.
Okay,
Okay.
Thank you.
good. All right,
We
thank
heard, we
you.
heard from our assistant city attorney. It'll be the next meeting on
Okay.
the, the ex parte issues. And the mayor and I will talk and figure out when we can have a little primer on Coastal Act.
Great.
Great.
Fantastic.
Two things. Oh, clear.
Overview.
Okay. Okay, so how about a motion to adjourn?
Can I say one thing?
Yes, please.
Swear 'em in.
Your mic is off. There, it's on. Okay, good.
Jim Light, District 1. First off, thanks all of you for serving. This is one of the most important commissions that we have. You guys make important decisions for the city, and you help take the workload off the council from having to do all this. If you've watched our meetings, they're going late, and having to add this burden to it would be all that much more. But what I'm really getting up here for is I want to compliment Sean. He took over in a void when Brandy left unexpectedly and has piloted us through some of our most, how should I say, complicated and stressful times from a planning and general plan perspective. So I want to thank Sean personally for all you've done. Staying on, he's going to be a force multiplier now. I don't know if you know, but he's also hired, he's done a lot since he's been there. I don't want to reveal everything, but he actually hired temporary help to help process things in the back room. He's done a lot of the heavy lifting himself, and he's agreed to stay on, which I'm so grateful for, because we'd hate to lose that corporate expertise. So thanks, Sean, for everything.
Thank you very much,
And
Mayor.
thank you
Really
guys for giving me a
appreciate it.
chance to speak. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
3 minutes are
Your honor.
Yeah. Okay, motion to adjourn
Motion to adjourn?
and a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks so much.